Hey cats, EDDBUD here. Today I'm going to try and answer one of the questions that I get asked the most on this channel. Should I get the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 or the Alphafly Next Percent? These shoes seem to generate a huge amount of interest. People just can't decide which one they should buy. I'm going to try and answer that question today. I've lost count of the number of times people have asked me this one. I keep trying to answer it in the comments, but you can only answer it in so many different ways. I've tried most of the options out there and 3 shoes seem to spring to mind, no pun intended. They stand out beyond the realms of the rest. They elevate above the hangers-on, the copycats and the poor facsimiles that sort of languish at the bottom of the barrel. You know the ones. I am jesting and joking a little bit there, guys. There are some really great other options out there, some alternatives. But when it comes down to it, most people are interested in either the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 or the Alphafly Next Percent. I'm going to try and keep this one as a deep dive, as if you were going to purchase one or the other. First off, let's look at the stats of both shoes. I do own the Next Percent in a size 11, but I've chosen to use my Next Percent 2 here for the comparison. This one's in a size 11.5, which is a US 11.5. Weighs in at 243 grams, which is 8.6 ounces, approximately 30 centimeters in length, and for me, I get about 2 centimeters worth of room between my big toe and the end of the shoe. The Alphafly Next Percent 2 here in a UK 11, which is a US 12. I measure this one at 29.6 centimeters in length, and I get about 1.8 centimeters between my big toe and the end of the shoe. So we're close to about 20 grams worth of difference between the Next Percent 2 and the Alphafly. But sizes are slightly different. I think if you sized up a half in the Alphafly, it would probably add on another 5-6 grams. There's no discounting in terms of upper that the toe box room in the Alphafly is much larger. It's a lot more generous. I think it's down a little bit to the overlays that they've put in front of the shoe. There's a far less aggressive overlap of the outsole rubber that creeps round to the front. In terms of outsole surface area, the Alphafly is quite a bit wider. Not just in the forefoot, but also in the heel. There's a good 2 centimeters difference back there in the heel of the Alphafly. Now the length of the shoes is slightly odd. It does perplex me a little bit. No matter how I try to measure it, this UK 11.5 or US 12.5 is supposed to be about 30.5 centimeters. I could only get it to about 30 centimeters. However, I tried to measure it using whatever apparatus that I had around. I think it's that rubber piece here. It just seems to push the shoe in a little bit, and there's not quite as much room as you would expect. That side, they have improved things by putting this sort of toe box overlay. It just seems to raise the toe box up, but there's still not as much room in the toe box in the Next Percent 2 as the Alphafly. Hopefully you can see that there, that the rubber piece just kind of edges over the top, and it does make things a little bit shorter. As you can see, I'm experimenting with lacing here in my pair of the Vaporfly Next Percent 2. I've ditched those sewing box doily style laces and switched in a standard set to see if it makes any difference. It does look kind of interesting. Not sure I like it aesthetically. Those other laces that have those protrusions on them, it's almost like they've tried to create a preset style system. It reminds me a little bit of my son's high chair, where it's got 3 sort of positions that you can set the chair to in terms of angle. None of them are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think that ratchet type scenario reminds me of the laces in the Next Percent 2 and the Alphafly. I mean, it's great if you can get them to lock into place in such a way that they work out for you over a long distance. But as we know, once you get past around about 10 miles, your foot's going to start to swell up. And what was a good lockdown then might not necessarily be one at 20 miles. So from that perspective, those doily style laces are a strange choice. I will update you on the progress with these other laces and see how they fare. Just a standard tongue here in the upper of the Next Percent 2 with a little padding, but you've got a sock-like construction here in the Alphafly, very different feel on foot. There's a little stretchy fly knit actually through the top section there where the tongue would be. Do expect to struggle a little bit when you pull this shoe on. I mean, there's a reason that there's 2 pull tabs here. Much more rigid structure in the heel of the Alphafly compared to the Next Percent 2. It's almost quite floppy actually, the material in the Next Percent 2. That new stuff, I don't know what it's called, but yeah. Atom Knit certainly has a little bit more structure to it. So if you're into flex, it's the Next. Solidity fans should go for the Alphafly. Now, the Alphafly is a tad narrower internally than the Next Percent 2. In that arch area, I measured about 6 centimeters here in the Alphafly and about 6.5 centimeters in the next percent too. Just be aware of that. These shoes, both of them, are very tight in the arch. Internally, in terms of the forefoot, they're both round about 10 centimeters, though in the heel, the next percent 2 is ever so slightly wider. It's about 0.2 of a centimeter. It might not seem much, but with running shoes, tiny little differences can make all the difference. I think they made up for that by including extra padding here in the heel collar compared to the more minimal material here in the Alphafly. A lot of people have mentioned to me that they find the extra cushion and midsole foam that's been added into the Alphafly is muddied a little bit by the inclusion of those Air Zoom pods in the forefoot. I've lost count of the number of people that picked this shoe up and then returned it. They just couldn't get on with it. I never really felt it was too rigid. I always felt it was an incredibly cushioned shoe. I don't know, maybe it's my running style, I don't know. It just seems to work well for me. In fact, both of these work well. If I was going to go and run a marathon tomorrow, I'm not entirely sure which one I'd pick. Probably dependent on how much cushion I feel my legs needed. And at the moment, I think I'd go for the Alphafly. I always felt propulsive. I never really felt there was that much difference in terms of weight between this and the next percent. I think both shoes you need to take some time to get used to. I don't think that you'll get the best out of them if you just throw them on for a race. I think you've got to use them a little bit beforehand to truly understand their facets. Perhaps those who have a longer stride might get on a little bit better with the Alphafly. If you're loading more energy sort of into the front of the shoe as you come down, I think they more evenly spread the impact of your foot hitting the ground, and certainly the extra midsole foam in the heel area cradles the foot and creates a slightly more stable landing platform. I have to be honest with you guys though, I don't think the big benefit that these shoes bring is from the carbon plate, it's from the midsole foam. Other companies are still playing catch up to some degree. You'll find with these that you can continue to train and race and run on subsequent days after very hard efforts. You'll feel less fatigued and you will feel fresher. Kipchoge himself mentions that a shoe has to enable him to carry out his 40-kilometer Thursday long runs and enable him to still get back out training again. I think that's why they should call them the next percent, because they enable you to get back out on the next day. I mean, is that 20 gram difference worth it in terms of the extra midsole foam? I think as a very slight runner, probably I don't benefit from it quite as much. I mean, October time last year, I decided to just go and run a marathon and see if I could do it. I wore the next percent, and I've got to be honest, I felt absolutely fine after a couple of days. My legs were just okay. Running 3 hours 23, I didn't really put a huge amount of effort into it. I just wanted to complete the distance. I think if you are training for a marathon or half marathon, then the Alphafly extra midsole material could give you some benefits. I think that anyone that could put these shoes on and, you know, run that type of distance, it's going to benefit them in some way. I think the foam will help you. It's going to fatigue your legs less. It's going to help propel you a tiny bit more. Nobody can tell me that these shoes are only for top elite level athletes. It's just total codswallop, I'm afraid. It's just elitist hogwash stuff. You can turn it on its head, can't you, and say, if an elite level athlete wore just a standard running shoe for one of these marathon attempts, would they achieve those type of times? Would they not become injured? Would they be able to continue training, run perhaps in subsequent days? Well, I don't know. Probably not. You know, I'd love to see somebody try and run a full marathon, one of those elite type athletes in like a Triumph 17 or something, or a pair of Rincons. I'd love to see it, see how they fare. We only see them wearing those super ultra light shoes. I think it's down to the foam a little bit. Not belittling anybody's world records or national records, whatever. I'm just saying that you can spin these things on their head. If a non-elite runner wears the next percent, is it really benefiting them that much? Okay, well, in that case, if an elite level athlete wears the shoe, is it really benefiting them that much? I'll leave you to think about that one. Outsoles here are quite different in terms of their approach. Much thinner slither of rubber here in the forefoot. It's only about 0.3 of a centimetre in the next percent too. Probably to protect the Air Zoom pods here in the forefoot, but the rubber section here in the Alphafly is much thicker. Those outsole fins are about 0.6 of a centimetre in depth. I do recall seeing a video with Kipchoge when he was introducing the Alphafly, and he had loads of different prototype models there. They were hung up on a washing line. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Kipchoge's out there hanging up his shoes with his pegs. He did have one there that had a waffle style outsole. I'd love to have got my mitts on a pair of those. One of these with a waffle outsole. Maybe one day Nike will do another by you type customization option. Who knows? Let's keep the old fingers crossed. I gotta say, I do prefer the rubber layout in the Alphafly over the Next Percent 2. It's more grippy, it's got a bit more bite to it. Maybe this was beneficial to Kipchoge, where they're running on those compacted dirt roads. I know it really feels good on gravel, this one. Certainly more suited to my local terrains and surfaces. But then again, how many of us are going to run some sort of half marathon or marathon on a multi-terrain surface? Certainly very few of us will probably be running any sort of races really in the UK, for the time being at least, certainly at the time of making this video. Rubber in the heel sections of these shoes are similar, though I do always get the feeling that the Next Percent is just minimised as much as possible, just to bring that weight down. It certainly does feel like the minimalist option. Now, people have managed to puncture these Zoom AirPods here in the Alphafly, although it does make me wonder whether the rubber is that thickness to try and protect those pods. When we think about the Nike Air Max, they always had to put something in around the air bubble to try and minimise damage to it. Except in that Nike Pre-Day that I recently reviewed, that's got nothing around it. I know some people that have gone straight through the rubber here in the outsole of the Next Percent, so just be wary about that. So I guess it really does come down to personal preference in terms of that upper fit, sizing, perhaps a toe box room as well. Alphafly obviously being more generous in terms of sizing, but also a touch heavier and more cushion to boot. Next Percent 2 is just a little bit sleeker, more refined and maybe a more traditional sort of running shoe feel. Can I say that? Nike themselves state that the Next Percent 2 is for anything between 10k up to the marathon, and the Alphafly is more for marathons and road races. Not entirely sure what they mean by that. Like a 1 mile road race, maybe? Probably not. I guess any shoe can be worn for anything, can't it? I'm not going to go and put these on and do the gardening though, not a chance. There's some quite tasty thorns out there at the moment that I've got to clear up, and yeah, the AirPods would be in danger. You do still see more of the top level athletes though choosing the Next Percent 2, don't you? Even now in the recent Istanbul half marathon. I'm not going to give an overall recommendation here, I'm just trying to present the facts to you, the cold facts. Just like Rodriguez. I think you need to take all of that in and make a decision yourself. I mean, one big thing though that's going to affect your choice is that this one's now only 209 Earth credits and this one's 259. So I think most people are probably going to reach for this. I'll tell you, it does make you wonder though, the pricing of some of the recently released super shoes from other manufacturers. They clearly didn't see this one coming, and the fact that Nike were going to reduce the price a little. Which is your choice of the two guys? Have you enjoyed the Alphafly? I haven't had huge numbers of people that really like it. Or is the more sleek and streamlined Next Percent 2 more your vibe? Let me know in the comments below. Musical interlude time. I did mention Rodriguez just a few moments ago, and that's been one of those albums I've been listening to recently. His 1971 album Cold Facts is pure brilliance. It's an album of two sides though. It's like a man looking at the ugly, nasty sort of side of the world, but also all the beautiful things on the other side of the world. How the world can be so beautiful yet so ugly at the same time. I Think of You has a sweet sentimental vibe with real heartfelt strings. It is a wonderful song. Does make you feel like summer has begun. There's some angry, upset and disgruntled type tunes as well. Commentaries really against the world at that time, and they still ring true now. You can't forget though the beautiful gifts that the world does give. Silver Words is another beautiful song. Really, really mellow. It's almost like there's a guy looking at a picture of past events, like history and sweet memories that he's got, and conveying them to the listener. Really is a lovely album. Do go and check it out. From Rodriguez, this one's called Cold Fact. Okay, thanks for tuning in guys and sticking with me to the very end. I do very much appreciate it. Let me know your comments down below. I'm always keen to see your opinions and your views. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when I launch those new videos for you. You don't want to be left behind. Also, it helps the channel out immensely if you give this video a thumbs up, like and share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you